OutKick 360 is back. Alongside Chad Withrow and Paul Kuharski, I'm Jonathan Hutton. Glad you're with us. David Reed and Jacob Swanson making the show happen for us here. Lance Lee, apparently on assignment. On assignment elsewhere.
We don't know what happened to Lance. It's a great mystery. We like mysteries.
Yes.
We like whodunits on this show.
We like Lance here
Lance
also.
is the latest whodunit.
What's up, guys?
We like Lance here as well. How are we doing? How was the big anniversary?
It was great. It was a great dinner. We got a lot of things done around the house that we have been talking about doing. And then late last night, we learned that my sister is engaged.
Hey!
So Amy and Alex,
Congratulations.
congratulations. Shout out to begin the show. So there we go. It was a weekend of love.
Yes.
A weekend of love.
You fell in love with a Bernie Madoff documentary at one point also.
I fell into the trap of watching a Bernie Madoff documentary. I'm like, oh, this may be updated based on his death. No mention of that at the end. It needs to be updated. And I still can't tell you exactly how Bernie Madoff got away for as long as he did with the Ponzi scheme that he created.
That's how a great Ponzi
beauty.
scheme works. Is it's all smoke and mirrors to where you still don't even know exactly what
But it was
did.
called, the doc was called like Bernie Madoff, the real story, or like something like that, like how it happened. And I still can't tell you how it happened.
I watched something called American Animals on Netflix last night, which was these 4 kids in Kentucky at Transylvania University who came up with a heist to steal these an original Darwin book and some stuff by Audubon that were $12 million worth of stuff, and their heist attempt that was pretty compelling. It was the guys themselves talking, and then kind of within a movie about them doing it. That was pretty compelling that I knew nothing about. That's worth checking out, I thought.
We're big documentary people, apparently, because I'm all in on Hemingway, Ken Burns' latest on PBS.
I've heard great
3
things.
parts, it's 6 hours. That's under 6 hours. Each episode's like an hour and 42 minutes, but it's great.
6 hours each.
Yeah, six hours each, just like your standard Ken Burns. The country music documentary, though, for comparison, is 20 hours.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is 10 to
Baseball
2 hour
was
parts.
20 hours, I think.
Yeah, so this one's under 6 hours, but it's great. And I also got into the A&E Stone Cold Steve Austin documentary last night. That's 2 hours. It's an enjoyable watch. It's not hard hitting. It's not like something that would be done on HBO, for instance. It doesn't get a lot into his personal life. He talks about like not really having a relationship with his 2 daughters, and says, I was just gone. I really took it for granted. Now I'm trying to bridge that relationship now that they're older. So it doesn't really hit hard. But for fans of the WWF, WWE Attitude Era of the late 90s, early 2000s, you're going to love the Stone Cold
What's he
documentary.
doing now?
He just lives on a ranch, and he does his Broken Skull podcast. It's on video. And he does some hosting of reality shows that he's done in the past. But for the most part, I mean, he kind of walks around his ranch and shows his old trucks that he has and everything. But he's just living off the money he made wrestling.
I also had 2 of my 3 siblings in for the weekend and 1 in-law, which is a great treat. Late night cards and having some fun. It's a great treat for me, but it's really great to see my son get to spend time with relatives it's a big rarity in our family. So
you guys also had a big weekend of sports.
No, a big bad weekend of sports. So he didn't make baseball. It was a conflict weekend where we had to chose soccer, and they went 0 for 3 in the tournament, though they played a lot better than they've been playing. So a 3-1 loss, a 4-2 loss, and 1 blowout. So.
Paul, you would have rooted for my daughter's team on Saturday because we took on the Red Sox in our season opener with the A's out in Mount Juliet.
They were yellow.
And it was a first game. I think for a first game it went well. I will say the Red Sox appeared to be a little bit more prepared than our A's.
Oh, no.
They also got there, and it was smart of them. They went, so not all the fields are open because of the flooding in Nashville.
What age group is this?
This is 5- and 6-year-old
Did the Red Sox wear red
softball,
or blue?
T-ball. They wore red with blue, unlike the jerseys from this weekend. But they took over a field that's not open yet. Like the senior league field, they just got in the outfield and they were practicing for an hour and a half before the game.
Whoa.
So they got there and they're ready to go.
For these young ladies.
And our girls are just playing tag because we're waiting on the game to finish.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers-esque of them.
Yes. I think Tom Brady actually coached this team with the New England tie-in. But it was fun.
You risk them being tired in that scenario. You work girls,
I don't think
5-year-olds for an hour and a
wasn't
half.
lopsided. It was we don't keep score until the second half of the season.
Oh, you'll learn.
But you do take outs now. Like if someone gets out, You can just, let me ask you just a for instance, okay, of how we should score this. We take outs, right? So at one point, girl on the other team hits a foul tip in the air, and we've got our best player catching, and she snags the foul tip in the air, just instincts, grabs it, it's an out, right?
Yes.
But you also don't want, it's the first pitch to the girl, so then she's not going to have a chance to hit it off the tee or do anything else on a foul tip. So we said nothing. I applauded. I think I was one of the people who saw her catch. I'm like, Caroline, great catch. But we didn't do anything, and then they kept pitching the girl. I feel like you just keep pitching and let him play on, let her hit it fair at some point. But an impressive snag nonetheless.
Yes, I think you played that correctly.
Yeah.
Are you pitching?
I'm not pitching.
You've been demoted.
I got usurped by the head coach, which is fine. Trust me, I do not want to pitch.
There's a lot of pressure.
He wants to pitch. There's a lot of pressure
How did
on
he
the
throw?
pitcher.
Were there complaints from the girls?
No complaints. He did a good job. Yeah, no complaints.
I want to create.
I told you, as someone who pitched in practice, I will never be the one to complain about the coach pitcher. The coach pitching.
Throw it in there.
Paul would be the first to complain.
Need some strikes.
Paul probably has complained about the coach pitcher at some point.
I took over as the coach pitcher
Because
when
you
the coach strained his calf.
But see, I've never been
tore his calf.
I've never been a part of the T-ball coach pitch combo. Like it was either T-ball league or it was machine pitch. It wasn't even coach pitch.
Okay, we went from coach pitch / T-ball to coach pitch to machine pitch to kid pitch.
Well, our team. So we have 13 girls on our team, and I feel like 8 or 9 of them. This is just the era we're in. Their names start with an E. All right, there's Ellie.
Yours.
There's Ellie. I'm not even exaggerating. There's Ellie, Emery, Evie, Elizabeth, Emma. I think there's an Ella on our team also. So I'm trying to, and I'm kind of the fielding coach. This is one note that we learned. Coach Doug Matthews talked about notes in each game. Lessons. The lesson I learned was I need to get the full roster and set a fielding chart for each inning because I'm trying to balance out outfield and infield with all the girls. And I feel like I'm bouncing them back and forth. But then another coach comes and said, no, Charlie or Emma has been in the outfield the last 2 innings, which I didn't realize. I'm like, I thought she was pitching last inning. So I've got to get organized and balance them out over and over. And you're doing it, and Paul, you know this. You've got, 90 seconds when they get their glove on and everything to get set up and ready?
Yeah, I've had
and you're trying to organize not 9 players, 13 players in the field at once that are scattered about everywhere. It's not easy.
Yeah, that chart's handy.
Yes.
Where you just call it out.
Parents out there know this pain, and for expecting parents or maybe one day you're going to be parents like Hutton possibly, now you know this is going to be a challenge for you if you're dealing with these kids or if you're just someone who wants to coach new sports.
Chad really put the pressure on me.
Yeah.
You should start charting out.
I'm putting the softball up there also, just like we are
possibly.
Like Hutton possibly.
Hutton, maybe.
We don't know.
Speaking of the weekend and what we did, what we watched.
The Entertainer? We're going to talk about
the
halftime
weekend.
show now,
Ladies and
finally?
gentlemen, the weekend.
The weekend, yeah.
I watched the Triller pay-per-view, Jake Paul, Ben Askren, and asked myself as I'm watching it, what am I doing watching this? But I was with according to Triller, they sold 1.3 million pay-per-views. So, I mean, that is right up there with a Conor McGregor fight for a guy who's now 3-0 in a boxing career and is yet to actually face a boxer in Jake Paul. He fights the guy from just recently retired from the UFC, Ben Askren, and knocks him out in the first round. When you watch it and you see the knockout, you feel dirty because you know, and there's an inkling, okay, the fix was in here, like all along. But at the same time, it's weird because I really didn't care. It was a concert that had a boxing match attached to it. Snoop Dogg performed. Justin Bieber performed for this. They rented out, they had the entire Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta with a little boxing ring in the middle of it. They had a slap fight in the back.
A slap fight?
A slap fight.
Who won that?
And help me with the comedian that we had in studio from SNL.
Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson was there as a special commentator. I mean, they just paid these guys to show up and do cameos. And they ended up making millions upon millions of dollars off of this.
Did you get to watch a slap fight? That's the most intriguing thing
I've got key questions here.
They had Ric Flair commentate the slap fight.
I've got key questions. A, how much did it cost?
It was $50 on Triller.
$50. You felt like you got your money's worth out of the entertainment value, or no?
The entertainment value was through the roof.
You answer the question on who Jake Paul fought, who I have no clue who this guy was.
Right.
I saw the name, looked it up. Still don't even when
He's
Google,
a qualifier
I
as
feel
an
like I don't know who this
Olympic
guy is.
wrestler from a few years back.
Okay.
Like, he's not a boxer.
Jake Paul, YouTube star. What did he do on YouTube to become a star?
I don't know.
All I know is that next to his
brother.
title,
Most
it is
people
Jake
do
Paul,
nothing.
YouTube star.
Yeah, it's the Kim Kardashian, the Kardashian effect, where they're famous for being famous, right? But he talks a lot of trash, and he has a lot of celebrity. Like Triller, I didn't know this.
The third question is, what is Triller?
Yeah.
Triller is
Like a
I had to Google
entertainment
this.
platform.
I didn't know. They're an app similar to TikTok for Android. And they have their main owner is
this
worth $14 billion. The company itself is worth around $100 million.
So this is separate of their app, because obviously on a
Yes.
TikTok type app, you only get so long to produce
Right,
something.
so their app sponsored this entertainment
They own
event.
it. They own the whole
It's not
thing.
just sponsored it; they put it
They
on.
own
Yeah.
this event. So they put
It would
on
be
an event.
like Twitter having
They
their own event.
Put on an
They own Fight TV, FITE, Fight TV, which is another app you can download where they have boxing, wrestling, different things on there. That's how you would buy the pay-per-views through.
You know
Fight
how much
TV.
I love intentionally misspelled words. Also,
Yeah.
that's to avoid a copyright, I'm sure. But FITE really gets me excited about that company.
But
Fight.
I'm
stick with
watching
the
it in
four.
That was
fascination.
sarcasm, by the way.
A part of me is just the intrigue of, okay, why is this a thing?
Is it Saturday
Why,
night?
as we have a graphic here that has the details on the fight itself, but I'm left asking myself why people are drawn to pay money for an event where you kind of know that the result is happened before they even fight it out, right? We're buying in on the hype.
This is fascination for me all along.
But we're in a society where you don't really care that the fix is in on certain things. Like, it's the reality TV aspect that draws you in. And the broadcast is intentionally unprofessional. Where they have Oscar De La Hoya, who is lit out of his mind as a color commentary. You have Snoop Dogg, who's rolling a blunt during the middle of the fight itself, telling Dana White to pay him his effing money because they had a side bet going on. I mean, but again, like, it's not like you watch it and you're like, man, this is something that I want my money back on. You're watching it going, I can't believe I'm watching this, but I'm entertained.
Well,
But if this happened in the NFL, it would be a national storyline.
I feel like
how bad it was.
it's an
Yeah.
excuse for guys to get together to watch a fight, but you didn't do that, so you
No.
paid $50 to watch this fight. So I guess my
Yeah.
question would be
Instead
to
of doing
you, what drew you into this? Because there's nothing about this that
Well,
makes me want to spend $50.
I'm a huge fight fan to begin with when it comes to UFC, and so I'm tuned into this. I watched the previous one. Was it November? Tyson got in with Roy Jones Jr.
I don't remember.
And it was on Triller. This was 5 or 6 months ago, and Jake Paul fought on that against Nate Robinson. And this is the fight since then, and it drew me in to see the production value.
But you
of
go
it.
for the fight, and then you watch the peripheral stuff.
and it's sightseeing. That's what it is.
And that's how I would imagine that's what most people are doing. Though there's a different demographic that maybe is in for the other stuff.
But just to put it like 1.3 million, a Ronda Rousey fight from a few years back would get around 500,000 pay-per-view buys.
Which was a good
So that
night.
they're doubling those types of dollars.
And that's a more legitimate event.
That's a
Does Jake
legitimate
Paul
fight,
do a
even though
good
that was
job?
over in 13
Right.
seconds.
Does Jake Paul do a good job promoting the fight? Like, when I think of promotion, I think Conor McGregor sells the fight.
See, he wants a boxing match with Conor McGregor. But
does Jake Paul have a big personality where he's good at promoting it?
he's got
I just don't.
he's got millions upon millions of followers.
I get the concept of having this big entertainment event with a fight at the end of it, even if it's amateur.
I know.
But I don't understand why we should care about Jake Paul
I don't
in
either.
these fights. Like, if it was name the former celebrity that's now into fighting, then I'd rather watch that. Aridana on Twitter points out Jake Paul got famous on YouTube and made a big name being controversial and obnoxious. He's got a brother named Logan who does
Yeah.
the same.
Yep.
There are a lot of people online who would like to see Jake knocked out. That's the spectacle. People are tuning in to see him get beat.
there's still a COVID effect here too, in that there aren't concerts going on. Games that are being played have limited ticket availability, right? Even if you want to be doing stuff, there's limited amount of stuff that you can be doing.
But this is more than a concert.
I don't buy that. There's more
something.
now to do than ever in terms of in-home entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, we started the show talking about all the documentaries we watched, and there's 15 shows on my list I could get to at any point.
If you're looking for something new, like we were last night, in terms of new movies that are out, there's not that much because production stopped. You can go find old stuff.
I'd like to know percentage of people that use this as an excuse to congregate. Hey, buddy, I've got this fight. Come on over, and get 5 guys from the neighborhood to come over. I think if I'm looking for the draw, it's
if you
more
did that,
of
tweet us.
Here's an excuse for a Saturday night to get some people over to the house because I'm starved to do something with other people. And I would like to know the percentage of people that had a gathering around it. And if so, how many? I mean, what was the number?
1.3 buys.
So then, how many people actually watched it?
I know.
If a majority of that were parties gathering to watch it.
See, I don't know why. I don't know why, but my gut feeling is more like it's a younger dude in his basement.
You think it's like the the gamer crowd?
Yeah.
I don't think it's that either. There are too many. Like again, they had.
Here was an older dude in his basement watching it.
They had exactly. They had Snoop Dogg and Ice Cube perform. They had Doja Cat come out and perform. They had Justin Bieber perform. Justin Bieber, who played 4 songs, left the stage after the 3rd and forgot he had a 4th.
They had to bring him back?
No, on mic, he's like, "Oh crap!" He came back out.
I can't count the 4.
The guy was partying with Oscar De La Hoya before the event.
They had multiple performances. They had the slap fight with Pete Davidson and Ric Flair walking in to commentate the slap fight.
How was the slap fight?
The slap fight was not as good as what you would see on YouTube. Like there are Russians that are built for these slap fights, that train for these slap fights.
Out of the crib.
There was one guy in the slap fight who I felt like he watched and had actually he was mimicking the proper technique of the Russians.
Did they ever backhand slap?
No, it's all palm.
It's got to be palm.
There are certain, but the other guy I felt like they found in Atlanta where they were and just said, "Hey, do you want $5,000 to show up and do this on paper?"
Okay.
Yeah, but they both were massive dudes. Pete Davidson acted like he didn't want to be there. Yeah. Like he felt kind of embarrassed to be there. He's like, but on mic, he's smoking a joint. And he's like, I'm here.
This sounds like a complete cluster.
He said, the check cleared. I'm here. I can't believe it. Ben Askren, who's fighting Jake Paul, tweeted Pete Davidson in the middle of the pay-per-view and said, I dare you to come to my locker room for a pregame chat. And it was very detailed on something Davidson had said to where it wasn't like a scheduled tweet. It was all just very bizarre, and it makes me wonder, if you had an uncensored broadcast like this for the NFL, for Major League Baseball, for the NBA, would people tune in for the novelty of, I realize that this is going to be completely unprofessional, and that's exactly why I'm watching?
Well, I don't know if Amazon will do that, but there's a lot of talk about Amazon, the direction they're heading, and with their streaming game, they're going to head the direction that ESPN is headed with multiple broadcasts of a game. So, like if they've got a Thursday night game, they'll stream it on multiple channels.
Yeah.
You could watch a national broadcast. You could watch a home and away broadcast that ties into the radio broadcasts of both the home and away, which I think people would enjoy. They'll do one maybe with no broadcast. And, so maybe as they keep looking for different things, and they could stream 15 different ones if you want, your broadcast your way, I think is what they're basically saying. They'll do more and more things like that. And they're not concerned with FCC, right?
Not at all.
On a stream channel. So maybe you get to the point where you're doing something like you're talking about, at least as a one-off, and you do a Nickelodeon one, and you do whatever, and you do all of those different ones, and you see what catches people's eye and get some acclaim, and you do feed them more what they want.
Well, going back to the Stone Cold documentary and watching that late 90s era wrestling and how great it was. And it was the perfect combination of Jerry Springer reality TV mixes with athleticism, right? That was kind of the whole thing. And they changed and had bigger personalities and more controversial and all that, and it was fun. So I can see the prospects of doing something like this that draws people in, that's very different and outrageous that supposedly ties in a real sporting event with a fight at the end of the night.
Well, keep in mind, there were other fights that were legit, like legitimate sanctioned bouts.
But also the people involved, like, I assume Pete Davidson is always high. I don't want to see Pete Davidson on camera high. If you got Brad Pitt drunk and he was commentating the fight, that would be interesting to me because that's not a celebrity you normally see intoxicated. So if the whole bit is everyone's messed up and it's sort of like the Golden Globes, but they're all on camera and mic, that's a part of it, and it's just a big party, I get the appeal to it, but there's nothing about Snoop Dogg smoking a blunt that shocks anyone.
Anymore.
Right? Like the people that are on there. Pete Davidson, the same way. Like Pete Davidson high, commentating slap fighting isn't interesting. If Adam Sandler were high, just commentating on slap fighting, that would be interesting. So I don't know. Again, I'm having a hard time figuring out the true draw.
I watch it knowing, like I'm intrigued by the production aspect of these things. And I watch it knowing that it's not meant for me to get. Like it's not marketed to me. Right. There's a younger audience that follow Jake Paul, Pete Davidson, who is the Adam Sandler of this SNL era, who are reaching a certain audience that's not directed to me, but yet they still got me.
Right.
Like,
well, here's the thing that surprises me.
But I openly admit that when I ask the question of why do people tune in for this?
I would think that the audience they're targeting is what age?
It's
in their 20s.
I think so, yes.
But the disposable income for somebody in their 20s to have $50 on this surprises me.
Oh, I think we're underestimating two things.
Like if you're going to get together with your boys and smoke a bowl in the apartment in college,
4 guys throwing $5.
Yeah, you got guys throwing in $5 or $10. They're coming over and watching Jake Paul beat the hell out of somebody.
We're underestimating two things, and because again, I watch this through the prism of what we're seeing is not reality.
Of course.
There are a lot of illegal streamers. This was not hard to find, even if you just YouTube it. You could find a stream on YouTube easily for this fight. Also, with the way Triller throws money around, it would not shock me if they bought up a bunch of these buys to inflate their numbers for promotional purposes. So that's the other thing here. But the payoff and what they promised you is exactly what they delivered. So, and it was getting attention on everywhere except for ESPN, which is now in bed with the UFC. Yeah, and they had a fight night that night, which makes sense as to why they wouldn't cover it.
So Lebowski on Twitter writes in and says, I think an unprofessional, quote-unquote, broadcast would do good numbers in pro sports. Bill Burr did a few live streams of just him watching an NFL game and reacting in real time. It was hilarious, and it had good viewer numbers.
There is an app for that now.
See, I would actually like to hear Bill Burr watching a game while the game's going on of his team.
Where it's an app where you can just listen to somebody talk over the game, basically. And so they were soliciting like sports writing, sportscasting types.
Live, though.
To do that, yeah.
But see, that, to me, like a Bill Burr, that's funny. But that also probably draws in my demographic more than a Pete Davidson or Jake Paul would draw it in.
But that's a pick your guy thing if you got a wide enough group of people doing that.
Yeah.
And then they could charge for it. You know, Bill Burr could get $5 from you for a Raiders game or whoever his team is. You know, niche.
Coming up, we have a show announcement, a programming announcement in about 20 minutes. We'll let you know something we're extremely excited about, thrilled for, that's starting this week on the show. Also, we have the Tennessee Power Hour, which is jam-packed with local headlines, statewide headlines. Stay tuned for that. We hit the national headlines when we return, which includes a retirement at quarterback in the NFL. The rookie quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, who we discussed last week not being in the headlines, is in the headlines now. As we turn the page 10 days away from the NFL draft. It's all coming up on OutKick 360. Hang with us. Alex Smith wins NFL Comeback Player of the Year and has retired. Welcome back, OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll hope you'll subscribe and share the feed. Give us a rating, give us a review on the podcast, but also retweet on Twitter, subscribe and like on Facebook, share the post on Facebook Live if you're watching there today, and of course hit us up on Twitter at OutKick360. That's how you can interact with the show through chat.
I think Alex Smith would have been a great add to a lot of teams as a backup who could step in, obviously, and give you good games. And he did that for Washington last year, and it's a shame. I'm glad he got to finish the comeback story, get out on the field and do some good things. And we talked about guys. We spend a lot of time. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about high picks on quarterbacks who may, be average players. Alex Smith, was number one pick in the draft, and in a year that he and Rodgers were the debate, and Rodgers went 24th, and you see the difference in careers. Alex Smith had a nice career, and he did some good things in Kansas City, but he's a guy that's used a lot as. That guy could be Alex Smith, and is that good enough? If that guy's Alex Smith, is that good enough?
Yeah, he's the poster boy for the pretty good quarterback for a while.
Right. You can win with him, but can you win a Super Bowl?
I think it's Jared Goff, as a number one overall pick, is sort of an Alex Smith type that was good,
I'd rather have
good
Alex
enough
Smith
for a while. But when you say Alex Smith's name from here to eternity, what's going to pop in sports fans' mind is the injury, is the leg, the gruesome nature of the injury, and then the comeback. I mean, he's always going to be synonymous with that. We're not going to remember the good days with the Chiefs. We're not going to remember him being the number one pick, struggling with the 49ers. We are going to remember that awful injury, and I think more importantly, the comeback from that injury.
Well, it's Joe Theismann. When Joe Theismann is walking around NFL Radio Row, every time he sits down at a chair and puts a headset on, he's asked about his injury. And then when that got old, he was asked about Alex Smith's injury and how tough it was going to be to come back from that as someone who could relate to it. Alex Smith will be the same way if he's making the media circles.
Much like the 72 Dolphins are contacted anytime a team loses late in the season. Anytime there's a gruesome leg injury, Joe Theismann phone blows up for comment on that injury.
Alex Smith.
He had 17 surgeries.
It's crazy. And we saw pictures of it, and Stefania Bell from
incredible
ESPN got close to him and did an hour special on his recovery. And it's the kind of thing you don't want to look. You don't want to look at the injury. You don't want to look at the leg during recovery from the injury. It was grotesque and hard to imagine that he'd ever walk on it again. Better yet, play football on it.
Many thought that he was very close to having his leg amputated. It was that serious. 17 surgeries later. He not only comes back to play, but his appearances helped the Washington football team get to a playoff appearance.
Yeah, did well.
It's not like he played in Jacksonville because they had no one else to turn to.
Yeah,
and he didn't finish the season, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he didn't.
He was dinged up.
Yeah, and they had some guys that were rotating in. They got their starter back.
Heineke ended up finishing.
Yeah, Heineke came back in and finished the year. But nonetheless, tremendous finish to a career that spans since 2005. And is it Aaron Rodgers that's the only guy left now from the top of that draft? I'm trying to think about who's left of that group. By the way, we should throw in that Andy Reid told reporters in a conference call, he said, if Alex Smith gets into coaching, I have first dibs. And I've already told him that with the relationship that they had.
There was talk of him signing with the Chiefs as a guy who would head towards coaching.
Adam Pac-Man Jones was drafted 6th overall in that 2005 draft.
I'm saying quarterbacks.
Yeah, the quarterbacks drafted. You've got Alex Smith at number 1. There was not another quarterback taken. Yeah, until Aaron Rodgers at 24. Jason Campbell was drafted by Washington at 25 that year. And that's it for first-round quarterbacks. Three quarterbacks.
And Rodgers may be the only first-round pick still playing from that draft. You mentioned Pac-Man Jones. He's not playing anymore.
Antrell Roll.
No.
He's gone.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are signs that make me feel old. Like 2005 was my first year even around an NFL team. and now it's Aaron Rodgers as the lone survivor from that group. Paul, you may remember this. It was a preseason game for the Titans, just to tie in Alex Smith as a final thought. Alex Smith, the starter in Kansas City. It was Patrick Mahomes' rookie season. He had just been drafted. And the Titans are playing the third preseason game, maybe the fourth. I just remember Alex Smith playing for maybe 10 to 20 snaps, and Patrick Mahomes came in the game. And the first time I saw him play live was that day, and immediately on the sideline. And I'm on the visiting sideline with the Titans. The veterans there were like, oh, this dude is legit. Like, Alex Smith is not long in Kansas City. They knew just from a couple preseason snaps that the guy had it. And that was his final year. He was soon to be in Washington.
And maybe we were at the Combine when it happened, when the Alex Smith trade happened after the season. It was the first maybe big quarterback trade made well before the start of free agency, where it's a trade that can't be official until the start of free agency, but it's the beginning of offseason dominoes falling into place. His trade to Washington and the official anointing of Pat Mahomes as the new starting quarterback in Kansas City. And we know what that started.
Now, from that rookie year to this upcoming one, Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be the first overall pick in the NFL draft 10 nights from tonight. In round one, a week from this Thursday. Did you see where he's already told Jacksonville fans on Twitter he's going to donate $20,000 to charity because of the wedding gifts that Jags fans have given him? Like, that's pretty obvious.
Calling a shot on where he's going to go.
Yeah.
I hope to be with you soon, or hope to be part of the community.
I'm going to donate to the community. Here we go. But he caught some flack late last week as we went off the air for a story where he admits that he has nothing left to prove, and he's not the die-hard, cutthroat quarterback that I think a lot of fans come to expect with public comments from their favorite players.
Well, so he basically said, I don't have, and I think the exact quote was, I don't have some big chip on my shoulder coming into the league. And I watched the QB 21 special with Kirk Herbstreit where he interviews all these guys.
How is that compared to, sorry to interrupt and go off topic a bit, how is that compared to Gruden?
I've watched the first 15, 20 minutes. It's more of a personal interest story. It's not really breaking down film.
Okay.
So it's totally different. It's good. It's entertaining, and Herbstreit does a good job with it. But you get to know the guys a little bit more in this.
I look forward to
it. He had a line in there that made me laugh. He said, through all the adversity, and I know that I haven't had much adversity. He said something like that. He's like, it wasn't a lot of adversity, but through the adversity, I had to persevere and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, let's applaud the guy for being honest. I mean, what adversity has Trevor Lawrence faced?
No.
What is there? This is like a 90s grunge era, and I think about, where was all the angst coming from? Why is everyone so angsty? Everyone who listened to that music, and I love that music.
School.
I didn't have a lot of reasons to be angsty as a kid, but I was. Why would Trevor Lawrence be angsty? From a good family, a wealthy family, good-looking kid, goes to Clemson, wins a national title right out of the gates. I mean, I applaud the honesty. He doesn't have some big chip on his shoulder like other guys. I hate when athletes go over the top to create issues and create chips on their shoulder at times. And I find that to be dishonest, the way they can create this big thing. Because every other player that's going to get drafted and talk to you, I'm coming in motivated because this person's talked bad about me and this person's talked bad about me and I'm going to show them. I get using that to self-motivate yourself, but I'm also not going to crush a guy who has the honesty to say, I don't have a big chip on my shoulder. Why would I? Why would Trevor Lawrence have a big chip on his shoulder? He's been nothing but successful, and his life has been great up to this point.
And then Mike Florio writes, it's okay because he'll learn how to take these, create slights to motivate himself. No, it's perfectly fine. For the guy, also, I think part of the concern is that people are like, he doesn't love it enough. He's not saying the absolute most important thing in my life is that I win Super Bowls. Well, clearly the guy's a motivated football player and everything. But the fact that he doesn't spit out the rote things that we want to hear from football players makes him more interesting and more compelling, not less. I mean, you can love football with every bone in your body to the degree that will make you a winner for the Jacksonville Jaguars without saying the mandatory things. And so that he doesn't read from the mandatory script makes him more compelling to me, not less. I don't need to hear those things. You can love it and have an outside life. I like that about you. Give me more of that, not less.
I mean, we're just how many years removed from, even last year, you can find players and nitpick players for not loving the game.
Yeah, but you can see it on that. Isaiah Wilson, we know didn't love the game based on the way he acted upon arrival in Tennessee, right? And that turned into being a huge bust for in Nashville. But there's no
the most
do we
recent
think anybody's
example,
saying anything like that about Trevor Lawrence? In
well, the
most
recent
report?
number one overall pick example is Kyler Murray. NFL draft is here in Nashville, and the debate was whether or not he should be the number one overall pick. Because does he love football enough? Is he going to go play baseball, or is his passion football? Number one overall pick, highly debated, and now we're just saying.
Well, I'll say though,
big deal on Trevor Lawrence.
I think there's a difference there in that there was no questioning the chip on Kyler Murray's shoulder, right? He came in with a big chip. I'm too short. I don't, throw it hard enough. Everything that's been said about me. I've been proving people wrong my whole life, and it goes back to what you said, Paul. It's that rote athlete, chip on shoulder mentality. I'm going to prove everyone wrong, and everyone's been doubting me. No one's doubted Trevor Lawrence his entire career.
You're right,
and that's
about
fine that he admits it. Here's the exact quote in the Sports Illustrated piece. He said, "I don't have this huge chip on my shoulder that everyone's out to get me, and I'm trying to prove everyone wrong." And then he goes on to say, and this is the big part of it, it's not like I need this for my life to be okay. Talking about football. Now, Trevor Lawrence went on to clarify, and this was an official statement. He says, "It seems as if people are misreading my sentiment."
He tweeted this in 3 tweets.
"I am internally motivated. I love football as much or more than anyone.
It
is a huge priority in my life, obviously. I am driven to be the best I can be and to maximize my potential and to win. I have a lot of confidence in my work ethic. I love to grind and chase my goals. You can ask anyone who's been in my life. That being said, I am secure in who I am and what I believe." It goes on from there. I think all that's perfectly reasonable, but I also think that we can look at the obvious and say that, well, Trevor Lawrence is just telling the truth. When has Trevor Lawrence been doubted in his life? What real adversity has this guy faced? It's not like he's Jay Cutler coming out of Vanderbilt that lost a ton of games and had to overcome losing and playing with not the best teammates. He went to Clemson, where he was the number one quarterback in America in high school, and was great there from a great family.
And a champion.
Again, let's maybe applaud the honesty a little bit and not immediately go, well, this guy doesn't have a chip on the shoulder. And why would writers even, don't write it. Paul, you write and cover the NFL. Don't you like it when someone's at least honest with you? You don't feel like you're getting the same line of BS from people?
Yes.
Not that it's always BS. There are people who have legitimate chips on their shoulder, and rightfully so.
Most do.
Right. But when you don't get the same answer, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's certainly not going to stop the Jags from drafting him number one overall, so it really doesn't matter.
Also, no controversy there. I mean, no debate.
There is a little, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, the mentality of Urban Meyer does not match the mentality of Trevor Lawrence.
No.
That's where I'm intrigued to see the relationship.
I did watching that Kirk Herbstreit special, Hutton, they're showing the footage of Trevor Lawrence's pro day, and Urban Meyer is sitting there with the center as he's snapping it in front of him. And Trevor Lawrence joked, he said, "I had to ask someone to get Coach Sweeney and Urban to move because I was afraid I was going to hit my future coach in the back of the head because they weren't paying attention at one point, and I'm throwing slants." And I'm watching Urban Meyer's face, and you bring up a great point. I'm thinking, are there two more diametrically opposed ethos of coach than Dabo Sweeney and Urban Meyer in how they go about their business and how they treat their players? Not that that's going to stop Trevor Lawrence from being great in the NFL.
And Meyer's going to have to adapt to the NFL way.
But it's very different.
Coaching.
But here's what you hope
is
that they're both smart enough that Urban Meyer maybe raises the intensity for Lawrence, which needs to come up in the NFL because it's a different thing. But that Lawrence mellows out Meyer, which needs to happen too, because this control freak, intense on every second of every day. Doesn't work on a Wednesday when you've got a tired team that's beat up and needs to get ready, but also needs you to take the foot off the gas. And ideally, there's yin and yang there that works. If Meyer won't let up, he's not going to work. He needs to be a little bit of a different guy.
I agree with you, Paul, and I think that you don't get to the level of Urban Meyer at different jobs without being able to adjust some. But I also don't see Urban Meyer as a guy who's going to adjust his mentality.
Well, that's why I don't think
he's already coming out and saying, things that are ruffling feathers of, well, I don't like the way they do things in the NFL where we can't sit down and meet with them. And
bye-bye.
Well, he's not wrong on that.
He's not. He's completely. He's
not wrong,
right.
but it's
you
not
can hate
change.
his approach and also agree that he can say something that's smart.
It's another example.
He's correct
of
on that.
He's not going to bend with what got him to where he is.
No, but he's also
going
not
to have
going
the
to
same personality.
He's also not going to single-handedly change the league in a 2.5-year period where he's going to decide if this is for him or not.
Well, we just praised Trevor Lawrence for saying something that's not the same of every single player in the draft. Urban Meyer is doing the exact same thing as a coach, and we're ridiculing him for it.
No. I have no issue with what he said about that. I'm just saying that, to me, is an example that Urban Meyer's not changing. He may adjust a little bit, but overall, Urban Meyer's not going to suddenly be some warm and cuddly, player-friendly coach. He's going to be Urban Meyer of the dictatorship, put up or shut up, my way or the highway. I'm going to treat the media the exact same way.
There are examples of those coaches.
The difference was, though, that there was some naivete, I think, in Urban Meyer, as if, there was no admission of, hey, I know what I got myself into when he said those things. He came in and was like, this thing.
Well,
really
I think you're just reading a quote.
It's broken.
As part of that answer, though, Paul, was they have signed, up to that point, I'm sure they've signed more since then. 8 of their 11 players that they had signed had some connection to him or his assistants.
Right, which is common.
But his answer to that was, we've got to know these guys, and we're not about to just randomly sign guys off the street without meeting them. And the way the structure is right now, we can't do that.
Right.
The structure is bad.
But he also knows that coming in. So to me, it sounds a little bit like you knew what you were buying into and you're crying about it nevertheless. I would just like that little content. I knew what I was getting into, but I don't like it. Give me a little preface.
Paul, you're going to hate this because of who I'm going to reference and their time in the NFL, but I believe that Urban Meyer will succeed for the exact same reason that Nick Saban failed.
I believe he will fail for the exact same reason that Nick Saban failed.
It's quarterback. If Nick Saban got Drew Brees and the Dolphins signed him, Nick Saban's probably still coaching the Dolphins, and they're very successful, and he's won a Super Bowl. Urban Meyer will succeed because of Trevor Lawrence. It's what Nick Saban didn't have in the NFL.
Urban Meyer will fail because he's a control freak to a level that the NFL just won't let you work at.
We will put both these on wax, and in 4 years we'll revisit.
2.5.
Yeah.
Quicker
that.
than I thought. Yeah,
if that.
We'll see.
You mentioned Drew Brees, another quarterback who retired this offseason. So now Alex Smith joins him. Phillip Rivers retired this offseason.
Big.
Other players, Julian Edelman, Jason Witten, and Greg Olson officially hanging up again. Thomas Davis, linebacker from Carolina, retired. The Pouncey brothers, going back through the list, Anthony Costanzo.
That's a big list. That's a really impressive list.
There's a lot of players that have called it quits over the offseason.
There goes our 20s, Hutton. Players are never coming to the league.
Bye-bye.
It's done now. Now you know you're getting a lot closer to 40 than you were 30 when all the players in your 20s that were drafted are all out of the league now.
Programming announcement for OutKick 360 that we're thrilled about, and we know you will be too. It is next right here on the OutKick Network. Hang with us. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network, which will include live radio just around the corner. We will have more programming announcements about our radio network and the full lineup in the days and weeks to come. We're thrilled about that as we get to the summer months. A lot of work going on behind the scenes. But speaking of behind the scenes work, we have worked diligently to provide the best show for when we expand past 2 hours. We're a 2-hour show right now. That's not going to stay that way. We're going to grow, and as a part of that, we are thrilled to announce that Greg Cosell of
Here's a scenario that won't play out with Greg Cosell on OutKick 360. You be Greg.
Okay.
Chad.
Oh, I love this.
And I'll be.
I've always wanted to be an actor.
I'll be a questioner. Greg, give me.
Hold on, I feel like Greg would cross his legs.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me do
Let me
this
set it up.
while
Okay.
answering a question. Here we
Greg
go.
Cosell with us on OutKick 360. Joins us weekly, Wednesdays at 12:30 Eastern.
Greg, give me a off-the-radar pass rusher in the second round.
Well, I've looked at 265 prospects already. Is there one specifically you'd like me to talk about?
Greg Rumpf of Duke.
That one I've actually seen. And seen.
That one he's actually nuts.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Well done.
We're going to actually have places for Greg to go. We've have a long-standing relationship with him, and we have questions for him. We don't just bring him on and say hey, talk us through some guys you looked at.
Well, here's the great thing about Greg Cosell. If you've heard him on with us in the past, you already know how great he is and how you're going to learn something every time he's on. If you've never heard Greg Cosell, you're about to find out, and you'll quickly learn that this guy knows his stuff. And one thing that we know is, first off, we know Greg well. We go to dinner with him at the Combine. We go to dinner with him at the Super Bowl. We hang out with him. We know what he likes to be asked and the manner in which he likes to be asked it. And the thing about Greg is he is so meticulous about his film study and what he does as an analyst. He is not going to BS you ever. If he hasn't seen someone, he's going to tell you. If he doesn't completely understand the question, he's going to tell you. He doesn't like broad questions where he's not asked something specific. If you give him a player, if you give him a system, you give him a quarterback, we know how to serve Greg up to where the softball's in the air and Greg Cosell will knock it out of the park.
Do his best
He
work.
will start knocking it out of the park this week on OutKick 360. I'm pumped about this, boys.
Great.
Pumped.
That's great.
Also, we should add that doesn't stop with OutKick 360. Greg Cosell will have an exclusive national podcast on the OutKick network, which will also debut this week. So we will give you details on that, and that's year-round, every single week, the Greg Cosell podcast, details on that show name and everything involved on how you can subscribe to the channel to get the film analysis going into each week across the league. That's coming up later this week, right here on OutKick 360. Again, pumped that Cosell is back with us, going on 8 years now. And we could not be happier that he's joined us at OutKick. I would like to propose a show bet. We can tie in FanDuel.com/OK360.
I have logged into FanDuel.
I have not looked at the lines, and I don't know if it's available yet because the best player may not be a part of this. I don't know.
We'll be able to tell you in a second.
But the Braves and Yankees have a 2-game series starting tomorrow.
2 games.
Ronald Acuna left the field yesterday briefly. He's out, so he's not playing.
He's going to be out for this series.
Well, that levels it up.
So I'm curious on the line if it's 1.5 or a little bit more. Most games are 1.5.
Can't get tomorrow's game.
You can't get it tomorrow. Yeah, the problem is we'll need to do this tomorrow because it's only day of.
I hate a
but they have
two-game
the
series.
lines. It's a quick 2-game series.
Yeah, I'd probably bet on the Braves.
You know what FanDuel does to me?
It makes you bet money.
It does. It also it doesn't make me. I choose to do it, Paul. But also, it does make me, when I choose to do so, watch about 30 minutes of the Knicks and the Pelicans yesterday afternoon because there's nothing else on but golf.
How'd my Knicks look?
And I tune in the fourth quarter. Well, I bet on the Knicks live. I think they were up 3 at the time to win by 1.5, more than 1.5. The Knicks had to hit a 3 with about 7 seconds left to tie it, get it to overtime, and then they win by, I think, 8 or 9 in overtime.
That's my Knicks.
So I won the bet. And Julius
back.
Randle, by the way, didn't even know, but he's killing it with the Knicks
he's killing
this
it.
year. He's killing it. Paul's Knicks.
My Knicks. I was out on my Knicks forever, and then I got slightly in with Porzingis, and then I was way out again.
FanDuel.com. You can see it below Chad. FanDuel.com/OK360. FanDuel.com/OK360. If you're a new user, up to $1,000 risk-free bet. You can place that right now as a new user by going to FanDuel.com/OK360.
I mean, I bet on the Yankees every 5 days when Garrett Cole pitches. And then, he's in a 2-2 game, and he gives up a run-scoring double. And then the commentators, and I like the Yankee TV people, but they say, well, you can't ask much more of Garrett Cole. And I say, yes, you can. You can. When you're a struggling team and you've got a $36 million a year pitcher, you can ask him to leave the game at least after 6 or 7 innings at 2-2. You can ask him not to give up a run-scoring double to a light hitter when all the guys in your lineup are hitting 160. You can ask him that. You can ask more of him. You can. I do. I want more of him. I want a guarantee every 5 days that he's giving up 2 runs or fewer when the team is not hitting. Now, when the team starts hitting, he can give up 5 runs once in a while.
That is his job.
But contextually speaking, when they suck, he needs to be excellent every 5th day.
Yep.
That's not an unreasonable expectation. That's $36 million a year expectation. He's the one guy on that day, every 5th day, they have to win.
You want him to be Jacob deGrom. But you want,
Jacob
unlike the
DeGrom
Mets, you
also
want to be able to
doesn't
score
get
2
scored.
runs.
Right, yeah.
This team can't score 2
I
runs.
mean, it's unbelievable.
For
New York
many
has
pitches.
2 phenomenal pitchers, and nobody scores any runs for either of them. DeGrom, I think, got a win in his last start, and that's hailed as a miracle in New York City.
Jam-packed Tennessee Power Hour coming up. Let's just run through some of what we're going to hit. There is
So
You can't
many
even
notes.
hit it all. You
There
can't-
is
notes.
another quarterback in Knoxville. We'll tell you who and why the 4-star is on Rocky Top. Tim Corbin praises Tennessee fans while looking to Nashville to increase capacity at his own stadium after the weekend series in Knoxville for Vandy and Tennessee baseball. The orange and white game just got a lot cooler this weekend with OutKick. We'll tell you details on an awesome event coming up. The Preds enter a massive week for their playoff hopes. And we will give you some options in our best Titans draft scenario as they're now less than 2 weeks away from the NFL draft on OutKick 360. Hang with us. OutKick 360 and the Tennessee Power Hour is here. Just like that, we are back. Great to be on Fox Sports Knoxville each and every evening. And a quick show announcement about this upcoming weekend for the orange and white game in Knoxville. Fox Sports Knoxville and OutKick hosting a meet and greet this coming Saturday at Old City Sports Bar. Chad, it's going to be a big Saturday afternoon on the Hill.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Hutton, you and I will be there. Clay Travis will be there. Fan Run Radio, Fox Sports Knoxville will be there. This is one of those that we didn't ask Paul because we knew he would say no, and I'm sure that Paul probably has youth sports also, so we didn't even bother to get the
family obligation.
Yeah, I knew there'd be family obligations, so we didn't bother, and that's
but
fine.
Thank you for asking.
But if you don't have family obligations and you can join us, then by all means, join us noon Eastern until about 3:30 Eastern time in Knoxville, Saturday, Old City Sports Bar. We're going to have a big time. Our radio partner in Knoxville, Fox Sports Knoxville Fan Run Radio, will be there. It's going to be a great afternoon, so hope to see a lot of you there. Should be fun, Hutton.
It should be. I'm hoping for good weather as I look it up right now for this coming weekend. It's calling for a little rain.
40% chance of rain last I checked. The one day this weekend that there could be rain.
We need it to move to Sunday. We need the rain to be on Sunday for the orange and white game to be
that far
perfect.
off, it's not going to be an accurate weathercast.
Yeah.
I hope.
We'll check back on Thursday and Friday and see what that forecast looks like.
The news, we're all going to be watching the quarterbacks in Knoxville for the orange and white game, but the news today in the recruiting circles is that Joe Milton, former four-star quarterback from Orlando, Florida, Michigan quarterback, is going to transfer to join Josh Heupel at the University of Tennessee. Joe Milton joins the quarterback group that at once was thin, now it's crowded, but this should be a sign, Chad, that one of these guys that's currently on the Tennessee roster is entering the transfer portal. The deadline's May 1st.
If he wasn't, he is now.
The deadline's May 1st.
I would think so, and I would hope so, honestly, for that player. They don't need 5 scholarship quarterbacks on this roster. So two sides of this, okay? One, is it a little bit alarming that they feel the need to bring in a transfer after spring? Yes, it's a little bit alarming. 2, though, how refreshing is it that a coaching staff looked at a quarterback position and thought, we're not good enough here to win games. So we may need to go and do something and try something out, as opposed to, I don't know, just closing your eyes and crossing your fingers and hoping that Jarrett Garantano figures it out and that he's going to make some massive improvement before the season. So this is a positive step that they could actually identify a problem and go and address it with a guy who started and played big-time college football. Now, outside of the Minnesota game a year ago, did not look great for Joe Milton in that Michigan offense. What Michigan was asking him to do is also going to be greatly different from what he's asked to do in Josh Heupel's offense. So, will he be the starter? Is he now the front runner? I don't know. He hasn't practiced once at Tennessee yet.
Is it bad that I automatically thought, it's going to be Milton and Hooker as the co-quarterbacks in 2021?
No, I don't think it's bad at all.
We're going to see co-quarterbacks, but I automatically thought Milton is very much at the front of the line. I mean, they're not getting him, and he's not coming unless he's playing.
I agree, and I see it as we're going to see both quarterbacks every week.
I think that it's bad news.
I do too.
I think it's bad news potentially for both Brian Maurer and Harrison Bailey.
And Maurer should be gone.
And I think the other one is Caden Salter. I don't think this is a ringing endorsement for Caden Salter, who got in trouble right when he got on campus, though. I don't know that they're getting great vibes from him. I don't think it's a good sign for any of them, including Hendon Hooker, because if Hendon Hooker came in this spring and looked like the guy, they may not make this move. They also have to get some transfers at linebacker. And we talked about the long snapper playing linebacker, that they need big-time help at linebacker just to compete this fall.
Maurer's the first one who should be gone, though, no?
Yes. Oh, I think so. I think Maurer probably is the odd man out.
But
we'll see. We don't really know. I
think that. But as I'm driving in and I saw the news this morning, I think Maurer's also the quarterback that's most willing to stay. I mean, look at the surroundings.
Have a lot of alternatives.
And he's told everyone he's willing to stay through everything.
Man just can't quit Knoxville. Can't quit him.
It's like Fulkerson.
I can't quit you. Cannot quit Knoxville. No, it is amazing. But no, again, I think that I'm not sounding the huge alarm bells or anything, but I would say that's not a great sign for the current quarterback situation to bring in Milton. But I do think it's a good sign that Well, here's a staff that recruited a guy. He was right in their backyard in Orlando in high school when they were at UCF. They liked him enough then. He was a big-time quarterback commit to Michigan that they thought enough of it of, we're not just going to sit back and do nothing. We're going to actively recruit this guy. And speaking of actively recruiting, Joe Milton's been in Knoxville just hanging out with teammates the whole time. It comes out today that he's been living there and hanging out with some of the team, getting a feel for everyone before he officially commits and signs. He's enrolled in classes coming up, I think, later this summer for summer
I saw
school.
reports where he enrolled today, made it official today.
So that's where the people started to catch wind of it because he enrolled in classes, and that the news gets out. But I saw also where he's going to make an official commitment a little bit later, but he's already enrolled in class in Knoxville, and apparently he's been hanging out with some of his teammates.
I just don't get the not being enrolled in classes at Michigan.
Well, he left. I mean, it's this is the new. We got into it last week.
Yeah.
This is the new era of free agency, mercenary playing in college football and college basketball. You go sit out a semester, and then you decide to go somewhere else eventually.
So he had 4 touchdowns in 6 games for Michigan in 2020. As a sophomore, he appeared in 4 games at quarterback, 3 of 7 pass attempts. So the scope is limited on what we've seen, but. That's exactly how we would describe Tennessee's quarterback situation. We know what we don't know there, and it's
a lot.
What we don't know is a lot, right? So we're not getting many details. Not many practices have an open session to begin with, and that open session where reporters can go observe is extremely limited. We've seen some open practices publicly. We're going to see the orange and white game, but now you throw Milton into the mix as we go into the summer. And with the announcement, it's hard not to see what happens in the orange and white game and pair it with Milton as a quarterback combo moving forward. Chad, final thing. If we were placing FanDuel odds on the quarterback transfer, is it Harrison Bailey?
On the transfer?
To transfer out.
Oh, I'd put it on Maurer before Bailey, but I think Bailey's a likely candidate also at some point. In looking at the comparisons of what they want, right? So Hendon Hooker committed to the previous staff.
Right.
Big guy, right? Has some mobility. Joe Milton is 6'5", 243 pounds. Big guy. Has some mobility also. I think that's interesting and kind of getting a sense of what they're looking for moving forward. Milton, 57% of his passes he completed, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns in 5 starts this past year before being replaced at quarterback at Michigan. So there's some things to like with Milton, but there's also a reason he lost his job at Michigan. So you're taking a flyer on a guy. Again, it kind of reminds me of Keller Christ. You know, he did some really good things early on at Stanford. He gets replaced, transfers to Tennessee, never made an impact in Knoxville. Josh Heupel obviously hoping it works out better for Joe Milton.
We don't talk a ton of college baseball on this show and won't. That much we know. But the comments from Tim Corbin, head coach at Vandy, after the Commodores took 2 of 3 this weekend in Knoxville, had to do with the crowd. And at first, reading comments from Corbin, you didn't know if he was taking a shot at Tennessee or actually praising the Vols. Turns out Adam Sparks from the Tennessean sent a text message to Corbin to clarify exactly what he was doing. He was praising the crowd in Knoxville, which was around, half capacity, but still much larger than anything Vanderbilt fans have been able to partake in on campus in Nashville. 3 hours down the road, it was quite the scene, quite the atmosphere for a great college baseball series. And Corbin pointed that out publicly after they took 2 of 3 in Knoxville.
It was such a good jab because you didn't know who he was jabbing at first. He said the quote good. That was tweeted, I didn't hear it, so you couldn't take context out of it. But the quote tweeted from Adam Sparks was, apparently COVID doesn't exist in Knoxville. And then he went on to compliment the crowd and the energy they had and everything else. And I read it and I'm thinking, I don't know if he's insulting the University of Tennessee and the city of Knoxville, his own programs administration and university administration, or the city of Nashville for not opening things up. As you start to get the hints of what Adam Sparks started, it's very clear to me he's taking a shot at Mayor Cooper and the restrictions in the city of Nashville.
Well, but on top
because
of that,
he's calling out the fact that just right down the road in the same state, they're having no issues and fans are there creating a great environment. And of course he wants that
But
his team.
It's not just Mayor Cooper here, because we saw Nashville SC have 40% capacity at Nissan Stadium.
Predators just upped it to 33%.
Yeah.
Well,
at Vanderbilt Stadium, not only is it limited capacity, you have to keep a 6 feet social distance between fans. So even if you're at half capacity, it still lowers you can't have half capacity
Small.
and adhere to that restriction as well. So they're down to about 700 fans per game for one of the top teams in the country.
650 to be exact. Now that's going to 40% now, so it'll double. So now they've made that announcement after
1,300?
Tim Corbin called them out. But that's also because the city opened up restrictions. So Candace Story-Lee felt the need to issue a statement after what Tim Corbin said, and she said, I echo what he said. We'd love to have a great attendance at the games, and we're working to do that now that restrictions are easing. And she said, we're at the mercy, and every school is, of their own municipality and city restrictions. So hopefully that's going to change now for Vanderbilt. And I'm not a college baseball guy, and you said it, Hutton, we're not going to spend a ton of time on college baseball. But yeah, I'm a fan of greatness, and Tim Corbin is great, and that team is great, and they've got a chance at winning a national title. And I believe greatness should be celebrated, and I think that that's a team deserving of a great crowd. And hopefully Nashville will now, as it starts to ease up, you're seeing more of this. Maybe by the end of the season, it'll be 75% capacity.
I always learned something from the state of mind and the approach that Corbin takes with his team. And there's always a lesson to be learned. And he was like, look, the hostile environment was great for us because we can learn how to handle some emotion. It wasn't how to handle a big crowd or some heckling. We were handling, speaking from Corbin, he was insinuating we're handling our own internal emotion on the road in Knoxville. I found that fascinating, that he views it from the mentality of his current team instead of the heckling that's going on behind home plate. And I saw guys that did you see the fan that shotgunned a beer off a mullet?
Yeah, that was that OutKick actually. That story, that video.
So I see that and I'm like, man, it's a crazy atmosphere. And then you see that they're at 50% capacity, and then you read Corbin's comments, and then he's talking about handling the internal emotion. And now he's thankfully, he's going to have more fans in attendance to witness what's been a solid team for years, but a really good one this year.
I think Clay said, Tennessee is back now because it went from butt chugging to the mullet luge.
Oh my God!
They call that the mullet luge, the mullet beer luge.
I saw that comment to that. It may have been Lebowski, who said this was both disgusting and fascinating at the same time. I can't stop watching even though it's disgusting.
Vandy wins 2 out of 3. Vols win the middle game, taking advantage of the bullpen after Leiter threw pretty well. 6 1/3, I think, 10 Ks, 4 hits.
But still bad for Leiter's. He gave 3 runs, which is huge for him. That's how great he's been.
But to win his start, even if you do your damage against the bullpen, is a big win. But 3-game series doesn't tell you everything, but it's what you had, and Vandy got the 2 out of 3, and I'm sure.
Vandy's a better team. They're the better.
Upset they couldn't break through.
They're the better baseball program, but Tony Vitello has certainly done a great job in Knoxville, and they're a legitimate contender now as a top 5 team. I think they showed that this weekend. I think Vandy showed they're the better team this weekend also. The tweet of the weekend, though, comes from Tennessee basketball, who John Fulkerson threw out the first pitch Saturday night for the game, since he announced he's coming back for his 6th year, and it was a good pitch from the big lefty. But Tennessee basketball tweeted out, so does this make John Fulkerson 10-1 against Vanderbilt in his career now in Knoxville?
Did he
I was the only one who found that funny.
Did he kiss the rubber and cry and slowly walk off the baseball field?
He announced that he's going to join the Tennessee baseball program next year. No, he didn't do any of that.
The extra year of eligibility, year 8, will be on the diamond. Predators with a massive week coming up. They will host Chicago tonight and then travel to Chicago for 2 more games.
Chicago week.
This week. It is Chicago week with the Blackhawks. And you can see the standings. And the standing, 2 points separate these 2 teams right now in the Central Division. 49 total points for the Predators entering tonight's matchup. 47 for Chicago. Neck and neck in a massive series coming up between these 2 teams as they fight for postseason contention. Of course, the Predators just lost to the Hurricanes. And some discussion was going, well, the Preds will close the season down the road against Carolina. The problem is, if this is a contested battle up top for the number 1 seed, because there is a big difference this year in the number 1 seed getting the 4th seed in the division versus 2 and 3 having to open up the postseason against each other.
Preds
You
can't
want the
play the
1
Hurricanes.
seed. And you can't play for the fact that, maybe Carolina will play their backup goaltending or, take some games off to go into the post. That's not happening. The Preds need to continue their great play, and they fell to Carolina in 2 straight games. Now they need to pick up the slack against Chicago, a team that they should win against, but a team that where it comes down, you can see all of the points there, 2 points separating these 2 franchises as we enter 3 matchups this week.
If the Preds win 4 and Carolina's 1, I mean, that's a. Anybody see them winning that
No.
first round series? Anybody see them winning a game in that first round series?
No, but it doesn't have to be Carolina, though.
No, I
It
know.
can be Tampa.
You're big Tampa
Again,
fans.
the Preds have not played
Not
well
great
against
against
Tampa.
them, but they're better against them than they are against Carolina.
In that division alone, the haves and the have-nots, and the line of separation between them is
Very distinct.
greater than it's ever been. And you go back to the greatest success story in Preds history was when they got in with the last seed in the playoffs, and think about how close those teams were that year.
Beat Chicago.
With the Preds dominating the first round series against Chicago as the number 1 overall seed.
4-0 or 4-1?
That is they swept them
Yeah.
that year. That is not going to be the case this year in the playoffs. But it is an accomplishment to make the playoffs, especially the way this Preds team started and played a lot of this season. So to get to that, they're going to need to do some work
Carolina
this
have
week.
21 shots in a period?
They're going to need to do some work this week.
The Titans are going to do some work in the NFL draft. Coming up in 3 minutes, we tell you of some options available, the best draft options for the Titans through the first 3 rounds of the draft. We're going to lay out draft scenarios, option A, B, and C, and we'll pick the best option for the Titans on the field in 2021. That's next on OutKick 360. OutKick 360 across the OutKick network. As we announced earlier, Greg Cosell joins us weekly every Wednesday. Looking forward to that as we talk all of the NFL film analysis. Again, that is coming up Wednesday, starting this week, 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 Central, right here on OutKick 360. 10 days away from the NFL draft, a lot of decisions being made in war rooms across the league. Tennessee Power Hour, we're talking Titans. And the Titans hold pick 22, pick 53, pick 85, and pick 100 through the first 3 rounds of this draft. 4 picks in the 3 rounds. And what we're going to present today are options for the Titans. We know needs. We can sit here and tell you they need to upgrade a corner. They need help at pass rush. That they need another tight end. They need a wide receiver or 2. They could use help at linebacker. Do they need depth on the offensive line? The list goes on of the list of needs for an 11-win team that had to do some maneuvering based on the salary cap structure for 2021. The rookie class needs to hit for this team to improve off of what we saw from last year, or at least just stay the same, even with the extra game. What I've done is I have pulled 3 draft options for the 4 picks through 3 rounds. And with David Reed's help, we have put together option A, B, and C. I will run through the 3 drafts. And as we sit here, let's say we're here 14 days from now, the Monday after the NFL draft, and we can see this haul for the first 3 rounds. And I picked 3 so we can quickly get through the impact type of players. Normally 4, 5, 6, 7, those rounds you're looking at some depth, special teams players. Projects, development. Let's start with option A for the Tennessee Titans. At pick 22, Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida, a high-level producer for the Gators. Very versatile, strong run after the catch, very balanced and tough as a wide receiver. He's a big play wideout. The Titans in this scenario address wide receiver early at pick 22 with Toney, who can do a little bit of everything. He's even throwing a pass in the photo that you see. Pick 53, offensive lineman Trey Smith from Tennessee. Elite size, length, and strength. Excellent lower body strength. And he can play either guard position. He's considered an immediate starter if health allows. His health condition in college, blood clots in his lungs. They go edge with Quincy Roche from Miami, a transfer from Temple. Average traits, but he is a bull in the china shop. He gets after it, constant effort, and a feel for how to play. Some would say he's a situational player out of the gate, a sub-package rotational player early on, but at pick 85, could that fit some Titans' needs? And Kerry Vincent, a corner from LSU, not an immediate starter, but can play a little inside or outside, but it's as a backup. Needs some coaching, but at pick 100 is the value there. So that's option A for the NFL draft. You guys have thoughts on option A from that haul?
My initial thought that jumps out to me is going offensive line at 53. And we're talking about needs also and slotting needs. While I love Trey Smith, the player, I don't know that I love that progression of picks in terms of the glaring spots that they need on this roster.
There's 2 things that I factored in here. Value, like where you would have him on a board.
Right.
A lot of people say health conditions aside, which is massive for him.
He's a first rounder.
He's a first rounder and an immediate starter.
Well, they don't need a guard. That's my thing, and I think he's going to wind up being a guard. So he could be Saffold's replacement in a year if you want to get out of that cash.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think with the high level needs they have for right now that I can forestall, look at guard for next year with all the needs that they have for this year. So my immediate reaction is show me B and C.
Well, it's Paul. Disagree with me if you think I'm wrong.
Don't worry.
I think those first 2 picks have to be starters. I don't think this is just a first round pick coming and being a starter.
Yeah.
I'm viewing first and second round this year because of the misses in last year's draft class and the misses in free agency. Both of those players have to be starters from day one.
I like I like the other 3 players, and I'm more of a Bateman than Toney guy, I think, because I'm not as high on Reynolds being able to do Corey Davis things.
I agree.
Though I like the Tony joystick element, but not until I'm confident that you've replaced the Davis capacity. Now, if Reynolds proves to be able to do that, then I love a Tony.
So
I
wide
like Elijah
receiver,
more
wide
maybe
receiver
later.
is stacked in the horizontal board that I've created at pick 22.
Yeah.
In option A, wide receiver is ahead of some of the other positions we're about to see. Here's option B. Linebacker Zaven Collins from Tulsa at pick 22. One of the most versatile defensive players in this entire draft. Height, weight, speed. In college, he has not concentrated on one specific position. You're drafting him on traits, and I think he could be an outstanding 3-4 outside linebacker with his open play explosiveness and how he can rush the passer with his speed and athleticism. He should produce quickly, even though we haven't seen him concentrate on one specific position in college. That's pick 22. Wide receiver at pick 53, Rondell Moore from Purdue. Extremely explosive and competitive. He is a starting slot receiver. Chad wants starters. There's 2 right out of the gate. Elijah Molden at pick 85 from Washington. At a corner. Not ideal for size and length. That's why he's at pick 85 here. But competitive, tough. His read and react skills are really good. And when I hear that description, I think nickel corner. He could be an impact player for the defense as a rookie in situations. Also, Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma, speed to power rusher, good balance, and versatile. Many have him as a 4-3, others have him as a 3-4. That means he can play in virtually any alignment that you want to put out there. That's good for the Titans defense at pick 100. There is option B with a defensive focus early at pass rush, because Collins, although he's listed at linebacker, I think that's how you would use him. You get Ronnie Perkins and you address corner.
I think I like this one better. You say Collins is immediate starter. I think he's immediate starting caliber. He's not going to start over Dupree or Landry unless you're intentionally saving Dupree or Landry for nickel.
Right.
Which I doubt they're going to do based on the way Vrabel talks about wanting his best players on the field. But that gives you a healthy 3-pack of edge guys if they will anoint him. And I like Collins if he comes in and is anointed. I don't like Collins if he comes in and says, we can do everything with this guy and we're going to move him around.
Well, I think that's
everything.
how you could see him sold early. And then Rashaan Evans is going into the final year of his deal coming out.
Maybe he moves inside later. I like Moore. I like Molden. Perkins.
Moore is a starter. He is a slot starter.
And I like
second round pick.
I like Perkins at this stage, though I'm not sure he's lasting till 100. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews on him. But you're double hitting edge here. So now you're 4 deep at edge. So, you know, I like the depth there, but they haven't proven to me that they'll go 3 deep at edge. Not that they've had the talent. I don't know that they'll play 4 edge guys. So you're looking at Collins as a into the second year moving inside, perhaps.
I'm just giving examples of how he can be used.
Yes.
I'm also extremely fearful of Landry or Dupree getting
going
hurt.
down. Could Perkins
and if that
play
happens,
end?
they are right back to where they started the offseason.
How big is Perkins?
I don't have the measurables listed in front of me.
I'm wondering if he could play end if you needed him to.
Well, he's listed as a 4-3 or a 3-4. So
that means
some see him as a
could.
hand in the ground end.
So that'd be convenient if Collins could play both outside linebacker and inside linebacker, and Perkins could play both outside linebacker and potentially end, at least in base.
He's 6'3", 250.
Yeah, conceivably. What do you think, Chad?
Chad, option B.
So we intentionally did not look at these options before for this exercise
to
be surprised to them and react to them. I like this a lot better than option A. I'll say that because these are 2 starters to start with Zaven Collins and Rondell Moore. I love Rondell Moore's production at the college level. I agree with you, Hutton. He's a day 1 starter. I'm really hoping option C is going to have a corner taken in the first 2 rounds because I don't like either of these options for that reason. Because corner is the most glaring need right now for the Titans, in my opinion. So I am very uncomfortable not taking a corner in the first 2 picks in option A and B. So I'm kind of setting up the segue for option C. I really hope option C has a corner in the first 2 rounds.
Option C is going to make him happy and piss him off all in one.
All right,
and here's why. Tevin Jenkins, right tackle, is the 22nd overall pick. Bothered some by speed rush, according to Mike Detillier and others, but great footwork for his size and possesses great power to his game. Who was it, Paul, help me out, who compared him to a better Jack Conklin?
A better Jack Conklin was Charlie Casserly.
Charlie Casserly called
said if
Jenkins
you like Conklin, you have to love Jenkins.
a better Jack Conklin. So he's the 22nd overall pick. We do know that the Titans have taken a hard look at him from Oklahoma State.
As have the Colts.
Asante Samuel Jr. at 53, not very big, but a nice skill set. And he's not physical, not overly physical, I should say, but he plays corner. And can he cover? Yes, that's what I'm judging this guy on. And he is smooth. He sticks with receivers. He can mirror the wide receiver. And the thing I love about Asante Samuel Jr., he can play inside or outside. And I'm confident in saying that about him. I think he fits this Titans defense well. At 85, a big need. Hunter Long at tight end has all the traits that I think the Titans will be looking for. Paul has mentioned him. Not dominant in any one area that really jumps out to me, but reliable hands, not overwhelming as a blocker, but tough enough to get the job done. And I think he will blossom in the NFL because you can draft him to do one thing well and have him focus on that one area, and he's athletic enough to excel at that early on in his career as he develops as a pro. And then Josh Palmer at pick 100. Maybe a little early for him because I've seen many have him available on Saturday, but he played in a terrible offense. Excellent footwork, combat catcher, aggressive, NFL-style toughness. And to me, he's a player you draft and he is active on game day. Not just on your active roster, but you find a reason to make him active on game day for depth. And he's a guy who you think could be an eventual starter. But he's going to help you on game day with the 100th pick. What do you guys think of option C?
I dislike this one. I hate Jenkins. I hate Jenkins in that he's another stab at Wilson. He's a brute like Wilson. I think they'd say a lot of the same things upon drafting him that they said about Wilson.
How's his laugh?
And I don't know how
That's
his
a big
I don't know
question.
how
Jolly
his laugh
laugh,
is.
good laugh,
And
infectious.
look, so if they do it, I understand that Wilson's a sunken cost. But I think that they can be all right with Kendall Lamb and Ty Sambrailo. And so this is too high for an offensive lineman for me. And I think they can do better than Palmer as a receiver in the first 4. I like Samuel and Long. So this is 2 for 4 for me. But out of your scenarios, I'm taking B. And I like Molden as the corner in the top 4 picks. So I'll go B. I'm really turned off by the Jenkins idea. I have been before this. I wrote about it after Casserly.
But let's consider what they do in option C, because the right tackle play is going to tick a lot of people off if they go that route, and rightfully so. Isaiah Wilson is a setback for this team, and they have to address it. They don't have their future starter in Kendall Lamb. If anything, he's a placeholder.
Wow.
And because of that, they have to address that position. And you also have to ask yourself, what is this offense? This offense is Derrick Henry. Is Kendall Lamb the right tackle moving forward? And if something happens to the tackle position, keep in mind, Taylor Lewan is averaging 10 games per year over the last 2 years. Part of that is his own fault with suspension. Another part of that is not his fault with injury. But you have to factor in what happens if you don't have Taylor Lewan for a full season, because we're taking that for granted, and we haven't had him for a full season here in Nashville for 2 straight years. And we've also seen injuries at right tackle that have moved things around.
It's true.
They have to protect themselves on the offensive line after getting by in 2020 with 3rd string, 4th string. They have to think internally, that can't happen again. And the Isaiah Wilson pick killed them because they have to go and address this now. And with Jenkins, I'm just doing mock drafts where some of the corners are gone, Collins is gone, and you have to consider, okay, what player impacts this the most? What do we get the most out of with pick 22? Is it offensive line based on style, based on how they want to play
based
offense?
on what's on the board?
But then I also threw in, because I knew you guys would hate it, I knew you guys would hate tackle. So I threw in a corner in the top 53.
You did.
I threw in tight end.
Good job with these
I threw
two.
in tight end because they desperately need tight end help. It's the forgotten position of the offseason among discussion. Not of them, they're going to address it, but of the offseason amongst us just chatting about what they're going to do. They have to replace the athleticism of Jonnu Smith. The guy who caught that circus touchdown catch in Baltimore, he's not on that tight end depth chart. They have guys who can move the chains. They don't have the athlete that Jonnu Smith became and that the player he developed into. They have to find someone that they can mold into the next version of him. I'm not saying they're going to find him in the third round immediately. And again, I'm going for just depth and an aggressive player in Josh Palmer at pick 100 because as I looked through some other mocks that I was doing, he stood out over some of the other guys that were available at pick 100.
Hutton, you did a heck of a job of giving me, just personally, giving me absolutely something to hate and something to love in all three options. There's not one option here that I look at and think, that's it. That's the one. So you did a great job of making this a difficult decision.
You hate this one?
I hate Tevin Jenkins in the first round at right tackle. I do hate that. I also believe they're going to need a tackle because of the misplay with Isaiah Wilson. Going back to the well at right tackle or tackle in the first round, I hate it. But I love the next three picks. Love Asante Samuel Jr., corner. I think that's a potential for a first-round type talent in the second round with him at corner. Love the upside of Hunter Long at tight end. Great athlete. Love the upside of Josh Palmer. Canadian kid. Didn't play a ton of football. He's still growing into his game, I think, and he played in a terrible offense with a terrible quarterback.
Who didn't and
at
a terrible
Tennessee,
play
and he's
call.
still, I mean, the numbers I brought up last week, the Pro Football Focus numbers against four of the top corners in this draft and how successful he was against them. Just go back and turn on that Alabama tape where he made some big plays. The Georgia game where he made some combat catches.
And they didn't throw him the ball nearly enough.
No, it was, again, bad offense, not a very accurate quarterback. So I like Josh Palmer at 100. But because of that Tevin Jenkins in the first round, Hutton, I'm saying no. I can't do it. I'm much like Paul. I can't do it.
I prefer draft B. And I didn't set it up to where I was drafting based on my preference.
Right.
After looking at all the options, draft B, as we put up the graphic, with Collins, Moore, Molden, and Perkins. Keep in mind, you have to think about what you don't have within the first three rounds. You're not addressing tight end. You're not addressing your offensive line. And there's still a lot of holes where you have to think, okay, where are they lacking the most among some starting quality type players?
Well,
you don't have an outside corner of this draft either. Then you're not going to find, I wouldn't think you find an outside corner with the speed elements that you require later than pick 85 or 100.
I'd scrap Perkins at 100 there and shop offensive line or tight end there. I don't know what was on the board for you there.
I also think option A is very underrated because of Kadarius Toney and speaking of options that you can use with him. He can do everything. He's even, in some cases at Florida, he's a wildcat quarterback.
Yeah.
Trey Smith, again, the value, we could be 5 years from now and believe, can you believe he was a second-round pick?
Yeah,
and he's one of those perennial starters that has started from day one and has a 10-year NFL career.
Yep.
So again, you get two immediate starters, even though you're not starting. Even though you're not starting Trey Smith immediately, I'm just saying you get two immediate viewed as immediate starters, and then you address edge and corner on the back end of day two at 85 and 100.
I would go option B as my first choice as well.
BAC.
I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going BCA because I love pick 53, 85, and 100 in C. So I'm willing to overlook the gaff in the first round at that point, because I think you're getting some immediate impact guys, but also with Palmer and Long, I think the possibilities of what those players could blossom into is huge.
Well, the other thing about
BCA.
The other thing about C is it's very offensive heavy. I mean, you got Jenkins, Long, Palmer. All you're doing is Samuel there. This team needs defensive
and
help.
This is an example of how you go horizontal board, where you say you have a pod of players at 22. Do you prefer Tony, Collins, or Jenkins more? Where do you have them rated on your overall assessment of your scouting department and team need? Then you go to 53. Okay, if you took a wide receiver, what's left? And then you start to stack players too. I'm intrigued by the overall holes that you're left with going into day 3, where you're drafting on need base. And we're told it's a great wide receiver and corner draft. So if you want to layer that in too, maybe you have a guy that's valued later that you feel like could be a day 2 pick, but you're getting him in day 3.
Yeah.
That's not the case in tight end, for instance.
Yeah, and that sadly could influence offensive line.
Could, yeah. Let us know on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram if you're watching the replay, on YouTube. Type in your favorite option of the 3, A, B, or C, and let us know why. We'll continue with these exercises from a Titans perspective, but option B gets it done in this discussion. Do you agree? Let us know at OutKick 360. Paul and Chad don't know about a special guest that's coming up next, but if you're new to the show, prepare to be entertained. If you're a fan of the past show, prepare to be elated. OutKick 360 returns next.
I've got a guess.
The Tennessee Power Hour on OutKick 360 rolls on, and we're wrapping up the hour. We are in year 10 together. We've been together a decade, and David Reed has been with us for the majority of that, and there's another guy who has been with us for the vast majority of the trio being together. And today's also his birthday. Happy birthday to Kirby Allen Kirby, who joins us from the Yurt. If you're familiar with the previous show, you know him well. If you don't, he's an engineer extraordinaire, and he is quite the guy. And he and Paul
know it all.
As much as they disagree on things, they also agree to. They love to hate each other. Let's put it that way. Kirby, happy birthday!
Thank you.
How old are you now? 76?
112 in dog years. I am 58 years old today.
Oh my God! I can't believe he's that young.
We have done this every year where we've cold called him in the past. We're like, hey, just call Kirby and get him on the show and let's wish him a happy birthday. We had to set this up today, and I wanted to do this. Paul and Chad had no idea you were coming on today, Kirby. This is quite the surprise
Kirby,
to them.
it's great. First off, great to see you. You look great.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. I like to think of Kirby as having the exterior from a weight standpoint of a 22-year-old, but the interior of a 115-year-old. When you think about the damage that he's done to himself, Kirby, would you say that's accurate?
Pretty close.
He's a heavy smoker, a heavy drinker, and a heavy rock collector.
And he joins us from his yurt, which is like the man cave, but it's recently been rebuilt due to a tornado that hit Nashville early last year. Kirby, you're in the yurt right now, correct? At least it appears that way.
I am, and to Paul, I've got it well lit. It's loaded with boxes as we're emptying, finally beginning to empty pods from the result of the tornado, and looks like we're inching ever closer to being complete. So it's not set up yet, but it was thrown together to take care of a thing for Reed, and now it's becoming a storage building until we can divvy out things where they belong.
We always appreciate your brute honesty on the show. You have seen us on camera in the recent month that we've debuted. Your overall thoughts of the three of us on camera on a daily basis?
Well, I saw you early on, one of the first few shows you did. I guess it was delayed. It was on Instagram. And you guys, you looked good. It was good to see you all. The setting wasn't that great. The chairs weren't the right size. Chad looked uncomfortable. I think I mentioned a few things to you. But overall, yeah, you look good. I was shocked. Now I tuned in. I caught a little bit last week. You've got a beard now.
I do, yes.
I'm like,
it's terrible.
He looks like Ulysses S. Grant when he first got out of West Point. But it was just, it's hard to watch you guys. It's hard not to, correct something that I might see that, you know what I mean?
Just correct an audio level.
You got to insert yourself into it. I get it. You feel the need, the urge to correct us, which I appreciate about you.
Go ahead. We've got our production staff here.
Kirby,
give them some pointers.
You can see Chad right now, right? Or can you?
Right now, I'm not seeing anything but a black screen and a big orange circle that says "done speaking." I guess.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure
well, don't worry about it then. You said Chad was uncomfortable. I was curious what makes him so uncomfortable looking.
That's gas.
Oh, well, no. Early on, you guys were in those small classroom-like seats, right? They have no arms on them. Chad's not a small fellow. He's a guy.
Yeah,
so,
he's a guy.
So you shove him in that little chair. He had nothing to do with his arm, and so he puts his hands on his hips. But by doing so,
it's very accurate.
By putting his hands on his hips, it projects his chest and stuff forward, which gives it that look of maybe menacing or like he's got an attitude. But that's not Chad.
That's what I'm going for.
And so I'm like, well, that's a strike against whoever set that up, because they don't, that's not Chad. He's giving off a persona that isn't necessarily him, unless he's maybe on a basketball court or something. You were stretched out and comfortable, but you've been in front of a camera quite a bit.
Yes.
you're stretching your legs out like you would do, but there was no table in front of you, so that might have it came off as maybe you weren't as interested in some
The
other
crotch
topics
shot.
as well.
Yeah, the crotch shot.
Right. In the meantime, you got PK over there doing PK thing. You know, he's got 9 things going on at once. He's typing and everything. So he was right at home. I mean, it didn't seem to affect him as much. And those were just personal things. And I thought, you know, somebody that's on the ball, and I'm not knocking your crew. I don't know these people. That was my critique based on my being the den mother for a decade.
Yes.
You got, I said, man, Chad needs a better chair or a bigger chair. You know, do something for Hutton there. But that's
Shave.
dude, it's like, and anybody else would have that had done the same thing. There are
No.
It's hard to walk. It's hard to just go, well, it's in somebody else's hands right now. You know, they look fine. Your topics, everything else, audio, everything was great. I just noticed a few things that I would have corrected or wanted to, you know, it had. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Kirby Allen Kirby joins us, who's banned from
Kirby's
Twitter.
critiques
Now,
could be a regular part of the show. I actually
Kirby's
appreciate
critiques.
that. And he's actually spot on. Like, this is sort of an uncomfortable chair that I'm in.
Comfy.
But I would also say that I feel like I am almost too relaxed on camera. Like, I look up and I'm the one that's like knelt over on my computer a lot of the time. I would not say I'm the one that's the most stuffy. I feel like he got it opposite. I feel like Paul's the one who's presenting the most. Yeah.
I wasn't trying to imply that at all. I was saying because of the fact that you didn't have anything to do with your hands.
Kirby, I'm agreeing with you for the most part. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Kirby. It's funny because when he's off
that's what
camera,
I mean. You needed a larger desk, something that you could put your rest your arms on as if you were at a table, you know what I mean, and or arms on the chair where you could rest your elbows to give you a more relaxed posture for the camera. That's all.
It's funny, Kirby, because when he's off camera, he has no lack of things to do with his hands.
Also true.
Kirby, in all seriousness, we wish you a very happy birthday.
You need to stop by and meet Jacob and see David.
You were in your 40s when we first started doing this show as a trio, and as you go into your 60s, we hope you will be no stranger to this show. Let's put it that way. And it is great to see you. And hopefully we have a very special edition of Truth According to Kirby down the road.
You know, that would be great. You don't know how many people that's the first thing out of their mouth is, why aren't we doing those? And I'm like, well, that was something that was with the different group, and that needs to stay with that group. So.
No, it'll be back. Hit him straight.
We give you the applause. Standing ovation.
And be sure to tweet Kirby at that Twitter address we put up, which is Twitter has blocked.
Yeah,
should we close the show by presenting our crotches on camera with a standing ovation? Kirby
can't see this, but on camera we have your Twitter account, which has been suspended. As a salute to you, sir. Happy birthday. Please tell Laura we said hello, and we can't wait to see you soon, man.
Love you, Kirby.
Will do. Thank you, guys. Love you. See ya.
Bye.
Happy birthday, Kirby Allen Kirby.
What a treat.
Day 26 of the show. The first appearance of Kirby Allen Kirby.
What a fun day.
Fun show. Very fast show.
Greg Cosell announcement.
Cosell is back.
Weekly.
Cosell is back. He will return weekly starting on Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern.
Listen, Kirby doesn't follow instructions, but I hope that you will. Do not block the box, but do lock the locks.